when you have to face to a challenge, do you more likely to say I can do it or not yet? One thing I have learned from the TED Talk called developing the growth mindset, and one thing I think is really interesting was that in high school in Chicago, students who did not pass 84 units to graduate from high school, they got a grade not yet instead of you failed. Yeah, I think it's really great because in this way your transcript is clear, not that ugly, because you got a 0. And another thing is like they know they're not failing. They know they just need more time to be accomplished. And that's really good. And no one can really stay away from trouble for forever. Yeah, so to have a growth mindset is a really good thing, and it can really help you to overcome your challenge. And today I want to educate you about the concept of the mindset and the effect of growth mindset and the factors that can influence the growth mindset. First of all, we have to understand what is a mindset. A mindset is described as a people general attitude and the way they typically think and about things. According to psychologist Carol Duke, a mindset is a self-conception or self-theory that people hold about themselves. Believing that you are either intelligent or unintelligent is a simple example of a mindset. So some example of mindset includes that army generals military focus, and the noun mindset was first used in the 1930s, and to mean that habits of mind formed by previous experience. And the mindset affect people in daily life. So like people can think things negatively. By thinking things negatively, they don't have much confidence about themselves, and they have no energy. And besides negative mindset, people can also think positively. With positive attitude, they experience deep pleasure and happy feeling. That's the two different mindset. And in the recent years, psychologist Carol Duke has developed the concept of the two mindsets, and they call it fixed mindset and growth mindset. So fixed mindset represents the negative attitude. According to the book, High Performance Training, it says that in a fixed mindset, people believe that their basic qualities, like their intelligence or talent, are simply fixed traits. For example, if there's some case they're having a really difficult test, and some of them would like feel really upset, and they would say that I haven't even learned that. How do I know? How do I supposed to know how to do it? And some of them would probably say that I hate it. So that's what people call a fixed mindset. Besides the fixed mindset, Duke also highlights that another mindset which is called growth mindset. So in the previous example, the kids who would say, I love challenge and I would like to try it, that's what we call growth mindset. So here I got a picture that shows the difference between growth mindset and the fixed mindset. Take the second one as an example. I say that that's what people who have fixed mindset would say. And so the growth mindset people would say that I will challenge you for me. I would like to try it and I would like to learn it. So, and the effect of growth mindset can shape people's attitude and can become a factor in whether people fail or success. A growth mindset reliably protect achievement and affected achievement. According to the study across the National Center of Students, they found out that students from lower income family who has the least likely to hold a growth mindset than their wealthier friends. But that those who did hold the growth mindset were more buffered against the harmful effect of poverty on achievement. So if a rich kid, he has a toy, but the poor kid, he doesn't have it. Some of the poor kids who have the fixed mindset, they would think that he's rich, so he has that toy. I'm poor, I don't have that toy. They think it's really reasonable. But for the poor kids who have a growth mindset, they would think that I know I'm poor, but I don't think that's the main reason I don't get that toy. Maybe I'll think another way to get that toy. Maybe I can have a part-time job, something like that. So they can be more successful than the people who have fixed mindset. So, in addition, some effects that made by the fixed mindset, growth mindset people happen inside people's brain. Here is a picture shows the brain activities inside people's brain, and the two brains on the left is fixed mindset people's brain, and the picture on the right side of the brain are growth mindset people. So we can see that there is two colors, blue and red, which means that this one is from a study of the psychological measures. He measured that from the brain and as kids in her areas. So if they really think when they get a very hard question, and if they really think about that question, their brain works inside their brain works. So make them like inside become white, make them unfair. But on the fixed mindset brain, there's nothing happen. So we can see that growth mindset really can make some difference inside the brain, even you don't know about it, but it really does. And in addition, keeping a growth mindset does help people to learn more effectively. So here's a chart that according one thing discovered by Mercer is that specifically growth mindset was associated with an uncertainty amplitude, which is this line that's going up, which means the students are really learning and remembering and getting smarter. That's why their line is going on. It's rigid, rising. So how can we build a bridge to growth mindset? Like if I want to be smarter, and how can I do? What can I do? So to praise people or to give people a challenge can reinforce the growth mindset. So if you praise someone really wisely, then they can really get something from you. By saying the praise wisely, it's not to praise on their intelligence, but on their work, on their focus. You really if there's a smart kid and he's really a gentleman, like he's really smart, but you shouldn't praise on their intelligence, because it will make them think that I'm smart enough, I don't need to study. That's a growth mindset, but it's not in a good way. And it also can reinforce the growth mindset by facing into the challenge. To push them out of their comfort zone to learn is a good way to reinforce the growth mindset. And the study really shows that if you really use your brain and learn something and remember something really, really hard, your molecule inside your brain can really make a new, stronger connection. Like after over and over again, after years, you can really become smarter. Yeah. So think positively. When they get stuck on problems, they don't think maybe I was born not good at it, which is a fixed mindset. And growth mindset people will always think I can do it, even I don't know how to do it, but I can learn. So, and the effect of growth mindset can shape people's attitude and affect their achievement. For example, the poor kid, and the example I gave before, the poor kid will think, how can I do to get that way? I know I don't have that too, but how can I do? What can I do? And if a kid really think about things, they would be smarter eventually. So the knowledge we know about the growth mindset, we can use it and make the lives easier.
All right, Sal, what did you think?
I think the topic was a little clear. One area to really work on would be projecting voice, just be able to audience I'm in front. I was kind of struggling there with some of the things that you said. Imagine that everyone. You did explain the growth mindset, and you gave plenty of examples. You gave plenty of citations. You did a good example with the toy. I did think that the first slide with the different columns of growth and fixed mindset was kind of like an info dump. There's just a lot of just examples that you did cover by yourself that you did well on. So I think if it was just shorter, it would have been a good example. I did like the second slide. It was a good, clean visual aid. So it was just simple for us to keep track of that and then transition to you. Just kind of work more with the interaction with the audience or the eye contact. You did kind of go back and forth between the slide and the paper, but I thought it was effective still.
Well, I think I'm going to start with the opening, the introduction. I think you've got a good introduction here, but it needs to be projected more. I'm going to kind of agree. It's like I was having a hard time picking out what you were saying at first, partially because you're not projecting well and partially because you're going a little bit quick. About a minute into the speech, everything seemed a lot clearer. I was able to follow what you were talking about, so I felt like the pacing at the beginning was problematic. You had a nice couple of definitions early on that I thought worked well, and I think one of the things that you did really well in the presentation was cite your sources during most of the presentation. There was always a reference to the psychologist who's providing a definition, or here's an example, or here's the, here's like even the visuals you're talking about. Here's the visualization that's created by this particular person. I thought that those were pretty solid. You did a good job on that. I do think I could use a little bit more information about how much it's changed. I mean, it sounds to me like it's a little ephemeral. It's kind of out there in the atmosphere. Here's this good thing that's a great tool to help people think differently and work differently. And I'm going, okay, and do we have some data that shows that it achieves those results a little bit more? And the high school that you mentioned, I think, is not a bad illustration of that point, although I don't know how successful that is, and I don't know how widespread those kinds of things are. So I think that we're missing a little bit of data. The data that you cite is good, but there's other information I think we need to have more of. Your explanations are pretty good for the most part, especially when you get to the visuals. I kind of understand what Sal's talking about. You've got a lot of examples on that one slide. Probably 2 or 3 would have been enough to explain the concept here. You have to kind of think differently about the issue. You have to verbalize it differently. It's got to be about perceiving the problem in a different way, and the way language can help us change the way we perceive those problems. I think that's probably the big step that you're taking there, and that we ought to be encouraging. I didn't really understand the example of the Army generals, but later on you had an example of students that was a little bit clearer, and I appreciated that. Organizationally, I don't really know how it's organized. I think it's a topical division. The supporting points are not very distinctive. The one thing that helps, I think, are the visuals that tell us a little bit about where we are. That should be something that can be done more clearly. The visuals are all large and easy to see. Like I said, with Sal's point as well, I think maybe the ones may be a little cluttered, but everything else illustrates a point. You've got an explanation for it. It makes it a little bit more interesting, and I thought that worked well, except for that line drawing, which I'm sorry, I was having trouble deciphering that. So you've got the graph that you're showing there. I'm going, I can see, well, the line's going up, but what's that based on? Well, what are these scores, and where did they get these scores from? What does this mean? That part was not very clear to me. I thought that was a little bit problematic. In case you were not aware of it, you went 11 minutes and 14 seconds, so you were about 30%, almost 40% over time, so that's a bit of a problem. I thought that the material at the end was a little bit stronger. The hypothetical with the conclusion was not a bad thing to finish with. I thought that worked out pretty well. There's a lot of good stuff in here. It's just, I think it needs to be structured a little bit more, and earlier you need to have a couple of illustrations to talk about the subject a little bit more effectively. But like I said, there's good stuff in the presentation. All right, thank you.